Hi, I'm Representative Alana Brubel, the House Democratic leader here in the Idaho legislature, and this is the Democratic Debrief, where we fill you in on what's been happening in your government this week. First going to start with the good news. There's been a lot of good news. Very proud of our Democratic caucus. They've been getting a lot of wins this week. First, today, a big day, Senator Janie Ward-Engelking and Representative Sally Toon passed through the Senate their bill for teacher loan forgiveness and teacher incentives to reward those teachers who go into rural and underserved areas. This is a badly needed bill that they've been working on for years. Very exciting they got it through the Senate, and it's on its way to the House. Also, Representative Green got two significant pieces of legislation through this week. One is the bill we call the Dig Once bill, which provides a structure for when you're going to be tearing up roads to have a system so that everything that needs to go in that ditch goes in at the same time. All of the fiber and the wire and the broadband and the electrical and all the things that need to go in will go in an organized fashion so you don't have to keep digging up the roads again and again. A great move toward efficiency and convenience for everybody. She also passed unanimously through committee her bill on mugshots and restricting the public release of mugshots for those who are on psychiatric holds to protect those who are having mental health difficulties from being publicly shamed and having their situation worsened. Senator Nelson passed his bill, which would make schools eligible to receive federal funds to buy low emission and electric school buses, which should be a great move toward a lower carbon future. So kudos to Senator Nelson for that. Senator Wintrow's two of her major bills made it through the Senate this week. One requiring insurers to cover 6 months of contraception, and the other providing tax breaks for in-home caregivers. Two terrific bills that have passed the Senate and are going to be heard soon, we hope, in the House. And finally, my bill, House Bill 561, that expands the funding for rural emergency medical services to provide for training of volunteers and a coverage of costs, ambulances, equipment, etc. And then I worked with Representative Green on the Appropriations Committee to get an additional $2.5 million of funding put in there. So hopefully that will make Idaho a safer place to be and have better resources for emergency medical services for those in the outlying and rural parts of Idaho. Now for the bad news. There are a number of developments afoot that are not so positive. Today in state affairs, two more voter suppression bills were introduced. One was introduced by Representative Priscilla Giddings that would ban the use of drop boxes for absentee ballots. So it would make it substantially harder for those who still have their absentee ballots close to Election Day. You wouldn't be able to drop them off anymore. The only option would be mailing them. There's never been a case of any misuse of a ballot box in Idaho, so we don't really understand what the purpose of this is, but it would certainly make voting harder. Another one that was introduced from Representative Dorothy Moon was a new version of her previous bill that would prevent the use of student identifications to register to vote. So this would shut voting access down substantially to our students in universities across Idaho. I'm hoping those bills don't make it all the way through, but they were introduced, so keep your eye on them. Also, this is really frustrating. There have been meetings this week where leadership apparently has told all the committee chairmen that we're running out of money because they miscalculated how much the bill would cost to put teachers on the state health insurance plan. It's $80 million more than they expected. And because the first thing they decided to do this session was send out $600 million in tax cuts before they figured out what our actual needs were, we now probably don't have enough money left in our coffers to cover everything we need. So they've been told to shut down hearings on additional legislation that would cost the state any money. Really frustrating. We tried to warn them. We said, how about we pay for all the things we need before we launch into tax cuts? But unfortunately, that wasn't the direction they went in. Another development to keep an eye on, it was going to be introduced, I think, yesterday, but got pulled at the last minute, is that bill to eliminate owner-occupied property tax and replace it with an 8% sales tax, which would be the highest state sales tax in the nation. We are really concerned about this bill. We very much want to address property taxes and reduce them, but we're afraid that this bill would make it impossible to reliably fund local services like police and fire and courthouses and all that. The bill hasn't officially been introduced. We'll talk more about it if it comes out next week. Another thing to keep an eye on is full-day kindergarten, which was introduced on the Senate side in Senate Bill 1315, but has not yet been brought up for a full hearing. We really want to see that move forward. That's something we Democrats have been working on for years. Those are the highlights and lowlights of this week. We look forward to seeing you next week.
Hello, this is Senator Michelle Stennett, the Democratic leader in the Idaho Senate, and welcome back. We're going to be talking about elections this week. These are bills that have come over from the House and are sitting in the Senate. House Bill 439 requires that independent, unaffiliated voters register for a party in order to participate in a primary. About 40% of Idaho voters claim that they are independent and do not want to register for a party. So this disenfranchises them to do something, and it also requires them to make a decision before they know who's going to be running for the candidacy for many of these positions. House Bill 547 would criminalize anyone who decides to help their neighbors by taking ballots from them that have not been tampered with, that have been properly filled out, and hand them only to be able to take them to the clerk or to put them into the mailbox. If somebody does 10 or more of those ballots for folks that elderly, people with disabilities, veterans, and so on, they would be considered felons. And in House Bill 548, it is a bill that I am co-sponsoring, and that is for people who claim residency or homeowners exemption in a county is where they are the only place that they are allowed to file for office. We do know that historically you have to be living in the place that you are and vote in the place that if you decide to run for candidate and file for candidate, then you have to come from that area. This is to clarify and make more transparent that where people have their residency and who are voting and where they file for a candidate, that they are in the same county that they live in. And finally, House Bill 512 requires that the taxing districts that go before a bond, if it fails, they have to wait 11 months before they come back to the voters for a bond. This puts our school districts, for instance, at risk because we are 49th in the nation on how we maintain our school facilities, and sometimes they really do need to, for public health and safety of our children, need to have these ballots come before the voters sooner than a year later. We will come back to you next week with more, and have a wonderful weekend.